I married into the Duke's household as a substitute bride to ward off misfortune, only to find the sickly young master hadn't died. After he inherited the title, I became the Duchess, managing the household affairs and enjoying the glory of the capital. My elder sister, unwilling to accept her fate, sought a husband through the imperial examination. After marrying, she discovered her husband was Chinshimi, a man who had abandoned his wife and children and became the laughingstock of the entire city. With a difficult mother-in-law and an unfaithful husband. When my elder sister accidentally killed someone and returned home for help, she was scolded by our father. Yet my stepmother took my hand as if I were her own daughter. She went mad, lunging at me and shoving me into the lotus pond. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the eve of the wedding. My elder sister knelt before the hall. Her head bowed low. This betrothal unites our families. Your daughter willingly marries into the Duke's household to ease father's burdens. My stepmother sat at the head, pleading earnestly, Tanger, why torment yourself like this? My sister beside her remained unmoved. I beg father and mother to grant my wish. Father slammed his fist on the table. Thunderous, you insolent child. Marriage is no trifling matter. How dare you defy us time and again? He pointed at me, kneeling beside her. How do you expect your sister to live with this? My elder sister stiffened her neck. This betrothal was mine from the start. What concern is it of hers? Returning to the mansion is already her good fortune. Father was nearly choked with rage by her words. That day, when the Duke of Mu arrived bearing betrothal tokens, Su Yuntang wept, raged, and threatened suicide, vowing never to marry. Her words flew, Mu Chuanbai is dying. The Duke's household, desperate, seeks a lucky marriage. The Su family can't compare to the Duke's prestige. Father is selling his daughter for glory. Better death than marrying a corpse. As her only biological daughter, she had been showered with affection since childhood. How could her mother stand by and watch her leap into a fiery pit? Though her daughter's words were harsh, she knew her husband's character better than anyone. She simply couldn't bear to lose the prestigious alliance with the Duke's household. Fortunately, her mother always had a plan. The Xie family's daughter from the estate, called me.Her, had just reached the age of coming of age not long ago. A sedan chair carried me from being Xiali, a country bumpkin, to Su Yunli, the pampered second young miss of the Su household. Su Yuntang's reputation in the capital was renowned. He never missed a poetry gathering celebrating the flowers. The in-laws naturally knew the appearance of the Su family's legitimate daughter. In my previous life, when I lifted the veil, I met the gloomy faces of the Duke of Mu and his wife. My stepmother's plan was sound. The door had been passed. The Duke's household had no choice but to swallow their pride. Yet no one could have foreseen it. Mu Chuanbai's health unexpectedly improved. After the wedding brought good fortune, I transformed into the Duke's benefactor. Later, when the emperor faced an assassination attempt, Duke Mu risked his life to protect him. The Duke's household reached its zenith. Mu Chuanbai inherited the title, and I became the youngest Duke's wife in the dynasty. Su Yuntang believed until her death that I had stolen her fortune. Given a second chance, she would naturally reclaim it. Su Yuntang resorted to crying, tantrums, and threats of suicide. If father and mother refuse, I'll throw myself to my death before your eyes. She lunged toward a pillar, but her stepmother swiftly intercepted her, clutching her as she knelt. Su Qingyuan, she is my only daughter. She's foolish, you cannot let her leap into the fire. Father flew into a rage, snapping, marry her off. Let her marry. Even if she throws herself to her death, she'll make a perfect bride for a ghost marriage. A triumphant smile spread across Su Yuntang's face. She brushed aside her stepmother's hand and hurried away, her steps light with excitement. The mistress shot me a venomous glare before rushing out. I kept my head bowed, silent, as if merely an observer. I was an outsider in the Sioux household. The matron who taught me relayed a message to the stepmother that country bumpkin raised in the village is greedy, coarse, and utterly foolish. Aside from her face resembling Sia's, she's good for nothing. All because she coveted my mother's heirlooms. And I clung to them fiercely. The stepmother sighed deeply upon hearing this. She had hated my mother intensely, restless ever since I arrived at the estate. My mother's name was Sia Mingda. She was the legitimate daughter of Grand Tutor Sia, well-read in poetry and literature from childhood, a woman of dazzling talent. When her family fell from grace, she was sent to the Imperial Music Bureau, becoming a court concubine. Su Qingyuan, once a student of Grand Tutor Sia, had long admired my mother during his studies at the tutor's estate. Later, he orchestrated a daring rescue to bring her out of the brothel. My mother refused to be a concubine, yet endured every form of humiliation from my stepmother for the sake of me, the child growing within her. After giving birth to me, she knelt before Su Qingyuan and begged to leave. At 6 years old, a white silk scroll arrived at our estate. The messenger accidentally let slip the truth. The emperor had merely mentioned to Su Qingyuan in our days studying together at the Grand Tutor's residence. I vaguely recall Grand Tutor Xia had a daughter, far more intelligent than most men. Su Qingyuan panicked. He conspired with his legitimate mother to silence her first. That day, mother bathed and dressed simply, wearing plain robes without adornment. She placed my hand in Xia Huai's. A faint smile on her lips. Lear, don't cry. Mother is going to find grandfather and grandmother. Mother bears no resentment. Mother died peacefully. That day was bitterly cold. The snow fell thick and heavy. Xia Huai and I dug for hours. Our hands chapped raw, before we hastily scraped out a pit, piling earth for mother's small grave. Mother said she bore no grudge. But I knew. What kept her alive wasn't just her young child, but the quest to clear the Grand Tutor's name of treason and vindicate the 63 wrongfully accused members of the Xia family. Her words of no resentment were meant to spare me from hatred. The Xia family's treason case had far-reaching consequences. Mother only wished to shield me from the bloody path of vengeance. But how could I not hate? A bone-chilling cold seared my heart day and night, robbing me of sleep. When envoys from the Sioux household arrived, I ignored Xia Huai's pleas and resolutely climbed into that sedan chair. Su Yuntang never knew. I shattered my spine, crawled on my knees through blood, and crawled my way to becoming the Duke's wife. But even in death, my mother's vengeance remains unavenged. The Xia family's blood debt unpaid. The cold wind howled. I knelt in the hall for a long time. Whether it was fortune or retribution, Su Yuntang, you may experience it all yourself in this lifetime. The festive music of wedding celebrations echoed in my ears. Lying ill in bed, I needed only close my eyes to envision the scene outside. The Duke of Mu held immense power and favor with the emperor. Even though this marriage was intended to ward off misfortune, its grandeur and extravagance were unmatched in the capital. Yet beneath the gilded splendor, every noble household harbors its own filthy secrets. Nanny Zhang slammed down the medicine bowl. No fortune. No fortune. You're nothing but trouble. Get well and get back to your estate. I paid her no mind. Su Yuntang would never let me go. My illness stretched until her return visit. Mu Chuanbai hadn't died, he clung to life by a thread and survived. She entered the mansion with a grand retinue, dressed in opulent finery, her presence commanding. She demanded to see me. Su Qingyuan, stung by her sharp words, stormed out in a huff. I arrived just as we passed each other. Seated at the head of the table, she curled her victorious red lips, now that my younger sister has returned home and reached her coming of age. With such beauty as hers, mother, we ought to select a suitable match for her. The legitimate mother paused, taken aback. She had intended to find an excuse to send me back to the country estate. But now she wondered what scheme her daughter was plotting. But the matriarch of the Su household always maintained proper decorum in public, leaving no room for criticism in her eating, dressing, or living habits. Naturally, she agreed readily. I lowered my head and smiled shyly. Yunli will follow whatever father and mother decide. All was harmony and warmth, sisters respectful, mother kind, daughter dutiful. The servants withdrew promptly, leaving mother and daughter alone for private conversation. My pace slowed slightly as I faintly heard Su Yuntang's stifled sobs. Thick layers of makeup couldn't conceal the dark circles beneath her eyes. Even the most splendid attire was merely a pretense of grandeur. I counted the steps beneath my feet, advancing one by one. The humiliations of my past life were unforgettable. Being forced to marry a rooster at the altar was the first blow that shattered my backbone. Being dragged into the bridal chamber by the matrons was the second. My husband's obsessive, violent outbursts were the third. Su Yuntang, how long will this blessing last for you? From then on, my standing in the household improved. My stepmother took me to banquets, and the name of the second miss of the Su family spread. With the young master of the duke's household saved, all of the capital spoke of the Su family's daughter as a woman of fortune. The two families became in-laws, and even my father's official position was adjusted. In the study, Su Qingyuan stood with his back to me, lost in thought as he gazed at the painting on the wall. I broke the silence, curtsying gracefully. Father, what brings you to summon your daughter? Your mother. He paused. All these years, have you held it against your father? I shook my head softly. I was young and ignorant, but mother told me father had his reasons. Since mother harbors no resentment, neither do I. His gaze fell upon my face, his expression enigmatic. You bear little resemblance to your mother's temperament. Well, these past years, I have wronged both you and your mother. His brows then relaxed as he tapped the tabletop. I summoned you because your mother mentioned several families in the capital expressing interest in marriage alliances. I swiftly scanned the list: pimping prostitutes, bullying men and oppressing women, ruthless tactics. Truly a list carefully curated by my stepmother, a complete guide to marriages to avoid in the capital. I knelt on the floor, eyes lowered. Marriage is decided by parental will and matchmakers' words. But the figure at the head frowned, impatience evident. I spoke calmly. Yunli has just returned home and has yet to fulfill filial duties before her parents. Moreover, this daughter was raised in the wilderness, simple-minded and uneducated. Unlike my sister, who is as different from me as heaven and earth, marrying would surely bring shame upon the household. He was visibly shocked. Uneducated? Did your mother never teach you? Su Qingyuan, blinded by greed, had taken shortcuts through the duke's mansion. How could he not have set his sights on me? Though the list was filled with idle scions, their family backgrounds all surpassed the Su household. His legitimate mother truly lived up to her role as his confidant. My eyes welled with tears. My voice choked with emotion as I adopted a feeble demeanor. Mother's hand ailment is incurable. I've never seen her touch paper or brush. Seeing the unmoved man, I smiled with resignation, but mother often spoke of father's brilliant literary talent. Even back at the Grand Tutor's residence, he was grandfather's most outstanding student. Yunli is dull-witted. I only wish to serve father faithfully before leaving the estate, to learn half his wisdom, and like my sister, be of help to our maternal family. Silence fell around us. Su Qingyuan stood with hands clasped behind his back, gazing at the spring excursion painting. A line of small characters was inscribed above it: ride the wind to soar across boundless skies, to gaze down upon the rivers and mountains. The calligraphy was light and free-spirited, mother's handwriting. I retreated to the doorway, nearly overcome with nausea. Su Qingyuan had been nothing more than a poor scholar back then. He entered the Grand Tutor's residence through his learning and was personally mentored by my grandfather, which paved his path to officialdom. The Xie family had bestowed upon him a rebirth. And what of him? After rescuing my mother, he forced her into a position as a secondary wife. And he took her life. Now he puts on this act of deep affection? How utterly despicable. I deceived Su Qingyuan. From the moment I could remember, Mother never set down her books for a single day. As a mother, she was gentle and loving. As a teacher, she was strict and meticulous. Xia Huai was her most accomplished pupil. At 3, I found practicing calligraphy tedious. I tossed aside my paper and brush, sneaking off to watch the Zhuangzi children catch fish. They spotted me and shoved me into a muddy pool. My clothes were freshly laundered by Mother, her hands bruised from the stepmother's beatings. Such chores were already taxing, and she'd repeatedly warned me to stay away from those children. I stood frozen, too scared to return. In the end, it was Xia Huai who found me in the woods. Upon returning home, there was no scolding or reprimand. Mother cleaned me up, changed me into fresh clothes, and then sat with me to finish my lessons. From that day onward, I devoted myself wholeheartedly to my studies, learning with unwavering dedication. Later, Xia Huai confided to me that she had nearly gone mad searching for me that night. Xia Huai was only 3 years older than me, yet he always acted like a pedantic scholar, doing everything by the book. He excelled in studies and was handsome, so Mother always praised him. But I hated him. I hated how considerate and sensible he was. He was clearly just a wild child Mother had picked up. Yet he took away her care. After another slap on the forehead from Mother for calling Xia Huai by his first name, I clutched my head in a huff. He's not my brother. Then I fired back at the instigator, you jerk. Why do you have to share our Xia surname with me and Mother? Don't you have your own family name? Xia Huai only pulled a packet of steamed locust blossoms from his robe and offered it to my lips. Looking utterly wronged, no. I don't even know my own surname. On that snowy day, Xia Huai murmured incessantly at Mother's grave, the most talkative I'd ever seen him. It'll be all right. It'll be all right. Master will be heartbroken. Ali, stop crying. From that day on, Xia Huai took on Mother's role. Reading, writing, daily life. I always knew he harbored a desire for revenge, to enter officialdom and govern the realm. And I, too, had grudges to settle, injustices to uncover. Before returning to the manor, he gritted his teeth. Must I sacrifice my life to secure yours? Would the master truly wish this for you? Wait. I cut him off. Xia Huai, I cannot wait. 3 years. 5 years. 10 years. How much longer must I endure? Do you understand? I have nothing left but this worthless life. Is the title of young lady of the Duke's Manor not more valuable than that of some country bumpkin? From now on, you walk your broad highway, I cross my narrow plank bridge. I flung that wretched ancestral jade pendant at his feet and turned to leave. The next day, a tutor entered the manor, and Su Qingyuan even granted me special permission to enter the study. My days grew busy. Social engagements outside the manor dwindled. Mornings were spent studying texts and calligraphy, afternoons learning household management and accounting. Nanny Zhang gnashed her teeth behind my back. She really thinks she's a young mistress now. She's practically wearing out the thresholds of the master's study and the mistress's courtyard. I merely smiled faintly and continued toward my stepmother's quarters. Though she'd been flaunting her mistress of the house demeanor these past days, today she shut herself away. She merely sent word that she was unwell. Humph. She's not even my real mother. Ignoring the gossip behind me, I obediently cowed out in greeting. In my mind, I calculated I'd heard that last night. The Duke's mansion had summoned every renowned physician. The palace had even dispatched imperial physicians. It could only mean that Mu Chuanbai was in grave condition. Just as rumors spread throughout the capital that the wedding to ward off misfortune was merely a final burst of life, the Duke's mansion sent out invitations. After the imperial examination results were announced and the Cheonlin banquet concluded, Duke Mu hosted a farewell feast for the successful candidates. This gesture silenced the swirling rumors. The servant who delivered the invitation even emphasized that the young mistress insisted the second young lady attend. In her previous life, Su Yuntang had set her sights on the third-place scholar at this very banquet. If she wasn't content, how could I possibly be? Sister, Su Yuntang murmured softly through her handkerchief. Have you been gazing at the third-place scholar until you've lost your senses? Her voice drew the attention of the surrounding ladies and young misses. Now, as the esteemed daughter-in-law of the Duke's household, she carried herself with the poise of a hostess. Dressed in splendid attire, she greeted and saw off guests with unparalleled dignity. I snapped back to reality and shook my head. Sister, you jest. I was merely searching for Xia Huai's figure. In my previous life, he had become the top scholar. Su Yuntang would not relent until she achieved her goal. Her tone grew urgent. Her smile forced, such a handsome young man. If you're too shy to speak, I'll ask father to propose marriage myself. Irritated, I pointed distantly. Sister, I'm looking at that one. A woman suddenly appeared among the male guests, wrestling with the third-place scholar who'd been boasting at the banquet. A crowd had already gathered. What's happening? Su Yuntang, disregarding propriety, strode forward. I trailed behind at a distance, admiring the mountainside peach blossoms. Before long, Su Yuntang returned, her face ashen. As she swept past the crowd, she shot me a fierce glare. Someone at the banquet had well-connected sources. Divorced his wife and abandoned his child? All that Confucian learning went to the dogs. What a waste of such fine looks. Somehow he managed to get before the Duke of Mu, kowtowing until his head split open. Thank goodness. Or who knows what would have happened if he tricked some young lady into marrying him. They say the Duke flew into a terrible rage. A lady pointed at Su Yuntang's retreating figure. She barged into the banquet, siding with that third-place scholar and grilling his wife. None of her business. Hush. It's the Duke's household affair after all. Just as I sought to slip away and find Xia Huai, a cold blade pressed against my waist. Second young miss. The young madam requests your presence. Dajing Temple's incense burned brightly. Today, its guest quarters were prepared for the noble visitor's rest. My body felt utterly limp as I was bound to a chair. A hand painted with blood-red nail polish pinched my cheek. Su Yuntang's face twisted into a hideous grimace. You wretch. You've been reborn too. How did that village woman appear? Was it you? Speak! The third-place scholar had fair, delicate skin and a sharp tongue. In a past life, after Su Yuntang and Wen Yuan married, they enjoyed a period of harmony, until Wen Yuan's wife and child arrived in the capital. The child fell ill with a fever, unable to adjust to the climate. When they came seeking help, Su Yuntang had them beaten and driven away. The child died. His mother beat the drum in the street, crying out for justice, accusing Wen Yuan of abandoning his wife and child. Why did you speak for that beast at the banquet? Sister? Was it to force me into that marriage? I leaned close to Su Yuntang and sneered. After all he did to you, you still cling to him? How pathetic. After giving birth to a daughter, she was cursed by her mother-in-law for supposedly causing the death of her grandson. When Yuan's career faltered, so she used her dowry to pave his path, begging her father for help to secure him a posting outside the capital. Yet that faithless man returned to the capital with 2 beautiful concubines. Su Yuntang fought tooth and nail in the inner quarters until her daughter died. She killed the concubine of the third-place scholar and fled home to escape the fallout. It's all your fault and that peasant woman's. And those damned women. If not for you, how would I have become the laughingstock of the entire capital? So what? I snorted lightly. So you killed her? Killed those concubines? Su Yun Tang. If you had killed that beast, I might have held you in higher regard. What do you know? What do you know? Su Yun Tang leaned in, her eyes dark and vicious, her sharp nails digging deep into my face. This time you're no different. Watch me marry him. At such close range, the bloodshot veins in her eyes, the bruises in her hair, the scratches on her forearms, no amount of powder could hide them. I spoke coldly, sister. This is what you begged for. This marriage was meant for you. For the position of Duke's wife. Endure just a little longer. You think I wouldn't dare kill you? Her hand tightened violently, warm liquid streaming down my face. I felt as if I'd heard the most absurd joke. Didn't you kill me in my past life? Your father murdered my grandfather. Your mother killed my mother. You killed me. What are you afraid of? What is your entire Su family afraid of? Su Yun Tang seemed to recall something, straightening up and gently patting my cheek. Such a beauty like you, what a waste to lose you. You're right. I'll make you wish you were dead, forcing you to watch me become the Duke's wife. Then she pulled out a vial, forcing it into my mouth. I was going to grant you and win you on your wish. But now you'll just benefit the servants. Who asked you to be so clever? I smiled faintly. Sister, aren't you curious why Mu Chuanbai didn't die in his previous life? At these words, Su Yun Tang froze. The small knife hidden in my sleeve finally gnawed through the rope, bursting with all my strength. I lunged sideways, pinning her firmly to the ground. I spat out the medicine from my mouth. Its pungent scent was unmistakable, the aphrodisiac the matrons habitually used when Mu Chuanbai shared a bed. Let me go. How? How could you still have the strength? Su Yun Tang fell silent under the blow of my hand blade. Her bones pressed painfully against my sleeve. Her face drained of color, a look of utter exhaustion upon her. It seemed Mu Chuanbai's condition was far worse than I'd imagined. Outside, chaos erupted, sounds of someone approaching. I bit through my tongue, dragged Su Yun Tang into the wardrobe, gripped the small knife in my hand, and fixed my gaze on the doorway. The moment I saw who arrived, the taut tension finally snapped. In my past life. The next time I heard news of Xia Huai came from Mu Chuanbai's mouth. That day, he stormed into the study with a sword. Father, let me kill that Xia Huai. Avenged third brother-in-law. Only then did I learn Xia Huai had entered the Supreme Court of Justice, uncovering the third son-in-law of the Duke of Mu's crimes, treating lives as straw, embezzling funds, and perverting justice. Those days, the imperial consort pleaded desperately. The emperor agonized, but Xia Huai refused to relent, until a report detailing the embezzlement was submitted. The duke's mansion fell silent. This protracted struggle ended with the third son-in-law's estate confiscated and his execution. Though the third daughter was divorced and returned home, the once mighty duke's mansion suffered its first humiliation. Despite the emperor's generous compensation, the increasingly heavy atmosphere at the mansion signaled that nothing would ever be the same. Xia Huai became a thorn in the duke's side. In the end, the conflict between the two sides escalated into a fight to the death. On the day Xia Huai died, I dragged my heavy skirt, panting as I raced down the palace path. The mirror hung high. The emperor seated, his voice choked with emotion. At the autumn hunting grounds, assassins struck. The Duke of Mu and Minister Xia sacrificed their lives to shield the throne, meeting unexpected deaths. I shall grant Mu Chuanbai the title of Duke and bestow upon you the rank of Duchess, ensuring a lifetime of splendor. You may withdraw. Xia humbly accepts this grace. Like a walking corpse, I gathered Xia Huai's remains. Unlike the Duke of Mu's grand funeral, with guests coming and going, the Xia residence lay desolate. What protection! What accident! How could anyone sleep soundly beside the sovereign's bed? His Majesty harbored resentment toward the Duke's household. Xia Huai had long sent me secret letters, The day of the hunt was the day His Majesty settled accounts with the Duke of Mu. At the end, he wrote, "Ali, if our great vengeance is achieved, would you be willing to leave?" The first two ink blots before the word leave, only when sorting through Xia Huai's belongings did I realize those two characters were marry me. Xia Huai had no parents. A lone minister loyal only to His Majesty. A weapon against the Duke's mansion. But I never imagined His Majesty could be so ruthless. He used Xia Huai and then discarded him, killing them both. The struggle between the crane and the clam benefits the fisherman. A carefully orchestrated hunt. A fabricated rescue of the sovereign. Silently eliminating two formidable threats. What a masterstroke by the imperial family. "I'm sorry," I choked out. A scholar who passed the imperial examinations. Entered the Hanlin Academy. And rose to the rank of Grand Secretary among the three highest officials, Xia Huai. "I'm sorry for ruining the stable life you should have had. Ali, you're awake." The sound of hurried footsteps reached my ears. The person stopped just before reaching me. Tears I thought had long since dried now flowed uncontrollably. I blinked and reached out toward the familiar figure. "Xia Huai, is that you?" Sensing my intent, Xia Huai stepped forward, gently pressing his cheek against my fingertips. His touch was warm. "It's me, Ali. It's my fault. I came too late. It's so good. It's so good to be alive. No longer the cold corpse of my past life." "Why so many tears? Does the wound still hurt?" His brow furrowed deeply. After Xia Huai died in my past life, I was filled with regret. I regretted insisting on returning to the Su residence, on seeking vengeance for the Xia family. Would Xia Huai then have avoided the path of a lonely minister? Would he have allowed the emperor to manipulate him, opposing the duke's residence to help me achieve my goals? He was well versed in the classics. How could he not know that powerful ministers throughout history met no good end? How could he fail to see through the emperor's true intentions? I was too foolish, blinded by vengeance, to believe the emperor's lies. I shook my head, touching the gauze on my face. "Xia Huai, tell me, do I look ugly now?" "No, not ugly. Ali, it really doesn't hurt." Words caught in my throat, cut off abruptly. I wrapped my arms around Xia Huai's stiff waist. "Then would you still marry me? Is this the beloved Xia Qing spoke of?" The familiar, flippant voice belonged to the visitor who entered unhurriedly. Xia Huai frantically pulled my hand away, drew the curtains, and bowed to the figure outside. "Xia Huai, humbly thanks Your Majesty for sending the physician." The emperor wore plain home attire, idly twirling a peach blossom branch. Behind him knelt a sea of courtiers. I said no formalities outside the palace. The Duke of Mu, waiting nearby with an imposing countenance, spoke in a low, measured tone. "His Majesty ought not to leave the palace lightly. My son is unharmed. How could I presume to trouble Your Majesty with a personal visit? I implore Your Majesty to return to the palace." The air hung heavy with silence for a long moment. Of all the ministers present, only the Duke of Mu has ever shown genuine concern for me. "Very well. I shall heed my beloved minister. Let us return to the palace." The emperor turned, and all present breathed a sigh of relief. "Ah." That voice sounded again, "Peach blossoms. So bright and lovely. So radiant and splendid. Minister Su. I see a bond between Miss Su and Xia Huai. Why not let me act as matchmaker today and grant these young people a marriage? Would that not be fitting?" Before anyone could react, he thrust a peach branch into Xia Huai's hand and departed with a smile. Watching Xia Huai hold the peach branch, a faint smile playing on his lips, I found myself unable to smile at all. The emperor's heart is unfathomable. After my wedding in my previous life, I entered the palace to express my gratitude. At the banquet, the imperial consort summoned me to speak. She was the daughter of the Duke of Mu and the most favored woman in the palace. Court attendants led me into the hall, where a man sat enthroned behind a curtain. That was my first sight of His Majesty. A stack of yellowed documents was handed to me. Opening them revealed the Duke of Mu's petition. Grand Tutor Xia colluded with enemies and betrayed the state. Below were line upon line of evidence. At the end, the late emperor's own handwriting: confiscate the family's property. Execute the males. Send the females to the Imperial Music Bureau. It took me a long time to find my voice. Your Majesty, why show these to this humble woman? Xia Li. He said, I know you are Xia Mingda's daughter. Grand Tutor Xia's granddaughter. Were you not investigating that case from years past? I can tell you everything. That night, I knelt in the hall, listening to His Majesty's words. He said that on the day the Duke of Mu submitted his memorial, he knelt in the Hall of Proclamation pleading for the late emperor to conduct a thorough investigation. Yet he never imagined Grand Tutor Xia would take his own life out of fear of punishment. He said that as a child, he was taught by Grand Tutor Xia and knew the man to be upright and incorruptible, utterly incapable of treason. He said the Duke of Mu harbored wolfish ambitions, infiltrating the court and persecuting loyal officials even during the late emperor's reign. Now, his arrogance knows no bounds. Finally, he helped me to my feet and declared, Xia Li, if you aid me, I swear by clasping our palms together that I shall clear the Xia family's wrongful accusations. Amidst the flickering candlelight, a crisp clap echoed through the hall. His Majesty truly mastered the art of manipulating hearts. He laid the evidence before me, knowing I could not refuse. With ease, Xia Huai and I became his two blades, one striking from within, the other from without, to dissect the Duke's estate. Yet while I sought vengeance for bloodshed, Xia Huai sacrificed himself for me. In the end, His Majesty claimed the Duke of Mu without shedding a drop of blood. One act of saving the throne erased all debts. I raged. His Majesty promised to clear the Xia family's name. Xia Huai must not have died in vain. The emperor sat enthroned upon the dragon seat, his expression unreadable. From the very beginning, your grandfather's case, once I root out the remaining traitors, the Xia family shall be exonerated. But after repeated inquiries, it became, Xia Li, I have already made you the Duchess of the Duke's mansion. One must learn to be content. Death extinguishes a lamp. Cease your inquiries. The emperor bears no guilt. The late emperor bore no guilt. What wrong have I committed? This lifetime, I never married into the Duke's household. This arranged marriage, surely it's merely to win favor with ministers. A favor granted for convenience. Or perhaps, I think of my own origins, to use me as a counterweight against Xia Huai's blade. His Majesty's words are as golden as jade. The carriage had barely arrived at the Su residence when the imperial decree of betrothal followed hot on its heels. Truly the daughter raised in a brothel, spit. I tucked away the decree and swung my arm. Smack! The slap sent her head jerking to the side, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. Nanny Zhong, watch your tongue. The room fell silent, everyone holding their breath. In the hall sat Su Qingyuan and his legitimate mother, both with darkened expressions. I knelt between them, my forehead pressed to the floor. Father, mother, your daughter has been unfilial, bringing shame upon our family. I would rather die. The imperial decree has been issued. Are you suggesting the Su family defy the emperor's command? Su Qingyuan's face held no trace of emotion. The stepmother gritted her teeth, her usually gentle face twisted into a hideous grimace. Speak! Did you poison Yun Tang? My daughter won't wake. I demand your life. You dare mention that wretched creature. Su Qingyuan slammed his fist on the table, the sound reverberating through the chamber. The stepmother snorted coldly. Tanger was merely sent back by the Duke's household. She wasn't disowned. The master has likely forgotten how he earned his official position. If my daughter suffers, that lowly Xia Mingda's daughter shall suffer too. She's supposed to be preparing for marriage. Isn't she? Zhang Nanny. Lock her in the ancestral hall to copy sutras for Tanger's blessings. I copied sutras for my mother by the dim candlelight. Calculating the time, I waited quietly for the visitor. Xiao Li. The intruder flung open the paper, palm thrust directly toward my throat. I extended my hand. With the slightest effort, she was immobilized. Save your strength. Beneath the lamp, Su Yuntang's heavy makeup had faded. Her face tinged with a sickly gray. A picture of ruin. By the pulse, the poisonous insect's venom was already nearing her vital organs. I discovered Mu Chuanbai had been cursed with a poisonous insect entirely by accident. The Duchess had once accompanied the Duke of Mu in campaigns against the southern frontier. Malaria-ridden air had caused her premature labor, and physicians claimed Mu Chuanbai's ailments were congenital. Yet after the wedding to ward off misfortune, as Mu Chuanbai recovered, I grew increasingly frail. This aroused my suspicion. Mother once mentioned that the southern frontier harbors venomous parasites that feed on life itself. After audience with His Majesty, I grew certain this parasite was connected to the imperial family. Sister, do you still wish to become the Duke's wife? You vile woman. Speak! What trickery did you employ to keep Mu Chuanbai alive? I met Su Yuntang's gaze, which seemed poised to devour me whole. I shook my head. You say this lifetime I failed to stop you from walking into the fire. What if I now advise you not to return to the Duke's residence? She remained silent. I smiled faintly. When begging for help, one should show some sincerity. I stood with arms crossed in the courtyard, watching Su Yuntang's hasty retreating figure. Ailey. What? Think I'm heartless? I pressed my lips together, watching Xia Huai emerge from the shadows. He rubbed his hands together, draping his cloak over my shoulders. Ailey, are you cold? Does your wound still hurt? I sighed, but he caught my hand. Instead, a smooth, warm object was pressed into my palm. Xia Huai said sheepishly, "This time, don't give it back to me." I looked at the warm jade, a stinging sensation rising in my nose. When Xia Huai was brought home by his mother, he had only this jade pendant. When Xia Huai gave it to me to warm my hands, I teased him, saying it might be a family heirloom meant for his bride. Was he just giving it away like this? Xia Huai nodded silently. Before returning to the manor in my past life, I tossed it to him. The next time I saw it was among Xia Huai's belongings. Beneath the pure white round jade lay a note to my wife. Seeing me cry, Xia Huai immediately panicked. Ailey, I said the wrong thing. Since I gave you this, do with it as you wish. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Watching his flustered state, I sniffed back tears. Xia Huai, why didn't you ask me where I got the antidote for Su Yuntang? Why didn't you ask me what I wanted with her? Xia Huai's eyes instantly reddened. I'm useless. Ailey, it's my utter uselessness that forced you into danger. He straightened my posture. In the moonlight, his eyes shone with an almost frightening intensity. Ailey, whatever you choose to do, I will support you. Xia Huai. The words danced on my tongue, but the phrase "don't become a lone loyal subject" remained unsaid. In my past life, I plotted meticulously within the Duke's mansion, gathering evidence. Many of the Duke's setbacks were orchestrated by my hand. When one scheme backfired, Xia Huai appeared to cover for me, taking the blame upon himself. He knew I had uncovered the true mastermind behind the Duke's rebellion. Unable to stop me, he resolved to aid me completely. In this life, Su Yuntang has married into the Duke's mansion, to bring down the Duke's household and the Ministry of Justice. Xia Huai must be involved. I grasped Xia Huai's hand. I've uncovered some clues regarding the Xia family's case from back then. I never believed my mother's words, that my grandfather, a man of unyielding pride, would take his own life out of guilt. Moreover, I suspect how Su Qingyuan, a humble scholar and my grandfather's disciple, came to be related by marriage to the duke's household. At that time, Xia Huai presided over the Ministry of Justice and uncovered a trace of evidence. Someone witnessed Su Qingyuan leaving the Xia residence that day. Su Qingyuan and the duke's household must have colluded. And my grandfather, he was the one who struck the fatal blow. My frequent visits to Su Qingyuan's study were precisely to search for evidence. Fate and destiny, in my past life. Su Yuntang thwarted my efforts at the last moment. Who could have imagined that in this life, the very evidence would be delivered to me by her own hand? On the day of my wedding, drums and gongs resounded. Su Yuntang, relying on the secret medicine I provided, saved Mu Chuanbai. She regained her smug, triumphant demeanor. She remained utterly unaware that the hairpin she'd stolen from her stepmother had helped me obtain the evidence from Su Qingyuan. Seated in the wedding sedan chair, I clenched the token of trust in my hand. The Duke of Mu framed the Xia family. When Su Qingyuan saw things were amiss, he personally strangled his own teacher. Then he staged a fake suicide. That hypocrite! He had the audacity to boast about saving mother, and the nerve to hide secret letters behind her paintings. My palms trembled. I yearned to slit that dog's throat right then and there. Only when Xia Huai gasped softly did I snap back to reality. Why is blood flowing from his mouth? Dressed in crimson, he bent down and lifted me out of the wedding sedan chair. Above us hung a newly crafted plaque bearing the imposing characters, Xia Residence. He gently patted my back and said, "Ali, we're home." Xia Huai, serving in the Ministry of Justice, moved with smooth, seasoned deftness. His rapid promotions were jaw-dropping. Observing Su Yuntang before me, I pondered silently. Having gathered evidence in advance sped up many proceedings considerably. Su Yuntang's thin lips pressed tightly together, his words laced with resentment. How many heads does Xia Huai have to dare oppose the Duke's mansion? I sipped my tea leisurely. Sister, you exaggerate. My husband merely enforces the law impartially. Su Yuntang abruptly stood up, sweeping the porcelain from the table with a clatter. Deep and shallow bruises flashed across her arms. Sister takes her frustration out on me. I took 2 steps back, my tone turning cold. Seems this medicine won't be needed. Su Yuntang should have known, once Mu Chuanbai recovered, her good days would end. Finally, her face darkening, she left with an increased dose of the medicine. Dark clouds gathered in the distance. Storm clouds gathering. Standing beneath the eaves, I suddenly felt uneasy. Footsteps approached behind me, followed by the weight of a cloak draped over my shoulders. Warm with body heat. Su Yuntang is far too extreme. Xia Huai hesitated, his eyes filled with concern. I stared at the faint stubble on his chin and the bloodshot veins in his eyes, my heart tightening. Though the hunting expedition was still far off, memories of my past life made me fear unforeseen complications. Rebellion in the southern frontier. His Majesty's wrath. The Duke of Mu petitioned to lead the suppression, only to be rebuffed. The third prince was dispatched instead, with Xia Huai in attendance. Events unfolding that never happened in my past life. I sensed trouble brewing. Xia Huai wrapped his arm around my waist. The Xia family was framed for treason. To clear our name, I must personally journey to the southern frontier. I knew this all too well. The Duke of Mu's campaigns in the southern frontier years ago. The southern frontier poisonous insect on Mu Chuanbai's body. My grandfather accused by the Duke of Mu of colluding with the southern frontier. Each piece of evidence made the southern frontier feel like an inescapable trap. I loosened my grip on his sleeve and said, "Word by word, promise me you'll return safely." The weather was turning colder. I dismissed the servants and opened the third letter Xia Huai had sent back. The letter contained lengthy expressions of concern and greetings, concluding with a mention that the Southern Frontier Rebellion had been suppressed. However, the aftermath proved troublesome to manage, and his return would be delayed for some time. Beneath the surface text, a line of small characters appeared: "The third prince has been murdered. Crucial evidence has been uncovered. I shall return shortly. Exercise utmost caution regarding the Duke's residence." The hasty handwriting signaled the urgency of the situation. Since arriving in the southern frontier, Xia Huai had been suppressing the rebellion while secretly gathering evidence. He and the third prince had been targeted by assassins on multiple occasions. Now that the third prince had met with misfortune, how could Xia Huai be faring any better? Just as his worries deepened, hurried footsteps sounded outside the door. "Madam!" "The Duke's residence. The Duke's residence is holding a funeral. Prince Mu is dead." Alarm bells rang in my heart, my temples throbbing violently. Mu Chuanbai is dead? What happened? They say his old illness flared up. He was found cold this morning. No. The medicine for Su Yuntang was clearly sufficient. Mu Chuanbai either faked his death, or Su Yuntang did something. I hurriedly wrote a letter to Xia Huai. But then I realized he had already returned to the capital, making delivery unlikely. Was it the emperor? "Why are you so alarmed, madam?" The Crown Prince Mu had an underlying condition. He should have. Hearing the servant's words, I froze. In the emperor's eyes, Mu Chuanbai was destined to die sooner or later. In my past life, it was only by a twist of fate that he survived, sustained by my blood. After much deliberation, I penned a letter and entrusted it to the guards along with Xia Huai's jade pendant. Ensure it reaches General Song personally. I then delivered my calling card to the Duke's residence myself. But the Duke's gates remained firmly shut. Mid-Autumn Palace Banquet. I finally encountered someone from the Duke's residence. The Duchess looked mournful, her eyes swollen and red. The Duke of Mu was absent, said to have fallen ill from a relapse of old injuries compounded by the grief of losing his son. Su Yuntang, however, dressed entirely in white, appeared radiant and even had the leisure to cause me trouble. "How has my sister been lately?" Su Yuntang stood like a triumphant rooster, head held high. "I hear Xia Huai was swept up in the mob, unknown if he lives or dies. Yet you show not a shred of concern." I stepped closer, not as composed as my elder sister, who could smile within half a month of her husband's death. Then, leaning in to whisper, "Su Yuntang, you must have wished Mu Chuanbai had died sooner. Didn't you? Or perhaps, you were the one who killed him. Too bad his death means my dream of becoming the Duke's wife is shattered." Caught off guard, Su Yuntang's expression darkened. She stumbled back 2 steps, her hand instinctively shielding her stomach. "Mind your own business," she spat before turning to leave. I narrowed my eyes and seized her wrist. "What do you mean by that? What are you doing?" Su Yuntang struggled to pull her hand free. My mind exploded with the realization. Su Yuntang is pregnant. I stood frozen, speechless. Mu Chuanbai's death, Su Yuntang's pregnancy, the Duke of Mu's illness. And then, I scanned the room. The banquet had begun half an hour ago. Yet the emperor still hadn't appeared. Distant flames flickered faintly. Su Yuntang was still cursing. "You bitch! Let me go!" I covered her mouth, pressing the dagger in my palm against her stomach. "Shut up if you want to live." Turning a corner of the corridor, I heard whispers behind the rockery. "His Majesty is near death. The imperial physician says it's a sudden heart ailment." The Duke ordered the palace gates sealed immediately. Not a single soul is to escape. I sucked in a sharp breath. Suddenly, Su Yuntang wrenched free from my grasp. The conversation behind the rockery abruptly ceased. "Who?" I spun and fled. After several sharp turns, I crashed into a warm embrace. Ali? A familiar voice sounded above me. I looked up, meeting Xia Huai's startled gaze. He wore full military gear, blood streaking his cheek, clearly having just returned to the capital. How did you get back? Before I could express my surprise, I grabbed his arm. The Duke's mansion is plotting rebellion. Xia Huai's eyes sharpened as he swiftly pulled me into the shadows. I know. The Southern Border Rebellion is a ruse, a diversion to lure the tiger away from the mountain. He drew a letter from his robe. This is the confidential letter the late general left for the Grand Tutor, proving Duke Mu's treason and complicity in the deaths of the general and 10,000 soldiers. Before I could ask further, a sudden clamor erupted in the distance. Xia Huai shielded me behind him. Too late. They've moved early. Su Yuntang. My composure was unshakable. Su Yuntang's pregnancy emboldened the Duke's mansion to rebel. When I entered the palace, I had already dispatched a messenger to General Song at the Western Mountain camp outside the city. He once served under the late general. But it may be too late. The Imperial Seal and the Tiger Token must not fall into the hands of the Duke of Mu. I instructed Xia Huai, I know the inner palace well. You go find Su Yuntang. I will seek the Emperor. Remember, no matter what happens, protect your life first. The southern frontier is shrouded in miasma, teeming with venomous insects, a treacherous environment. It has repeatedly invaded the Central Plains. During the late Emperor's reign, troops were dispatched multiple times to subdue it, only to return defeated. It wasn't until the great general personally led the army, with the Duke of Mu overseeing the campaign, that they marched south. In the end, the great general and 100,000 soldiers perished in battle, securing a peace treaty with the Duke of Mu and bringing the southern frontier to its knees. I swiftly scanned the evidence Xia Huai had gathered. Who could have imagined that the sacrifice of 100,000 men was not a deliberate act by the Duke of Mu to conceal his own crimes? The war with the southern frontier was merely his pretext for amassing wealth. When the great general discovered this, he sent the 100,000 soldiers to their deaths. The traitor who colluded with the enemy was never the Xie family, it was Mu Xian. Gritting my teeth, I relied on memories from my past life to reach the Emperor's bedchamber. The moment I drew near, the sound of shattering porcelain pierced the air. Wretch! How dare you poison His Majesty? Your Majesty misunderstands. Your Majesty. I merely wished to let His Majesty rest a while. Peering through the side window, I saw His Majesty collapsed on the imperial bed, his face ashen. The imperial consort held a golden hairpin pressed against the Empress's throat. I kicked open the door and charged in. Under the consort's stunned gaze, I struck her nape with a karate chop. Madame Xia! The Empress, still shaken, gasped. How could you? Your Majesty. The Duke's mansion is plotting rebellion. We must depart immediately. I swiftly checked the Emperor's pulse, my heart sinking. The pulse was faint and erratic, clear signs of poisoning. The Empress staggered. Leave? Where? The Crown Prince has already been. Just then, the figure on the dragon bed suddenly regained consciousness. With great effort, he raised his hand toward me. Xia. Xia Li. My heart sank as I knelt before the bed. Xia Li. Do you know why I never called you Su Yunli? I know you are the daughter of Xia Mingde, the granddaughter of Grand Tutor Xia, and my eldest princess. Not much different from my past life. Yet my state of mind was entirely different. I have wronged Grand Tutor Xia. Wronged you and your mother. Li-Er. Remember your father's words, protect the Empress. Never let the Imperial Seal and Tiger Token fall into the hands of traitors. Only after seeing me nod did His Majesty close his eyes. Clutching the Imperial Seal and Tiger Token, I dragged the consort and Empress into the secret passage. Bitterness filled my heart. In my past life, His Majesty knew from the very beginning that I was his daughter. Yet he never acknowledged it. Not even at my death. The life-binding poison, only by feeding it with one's own body can it be wielded. The venomous poison bred by the imperial family can only be sustained by royal blood. This is why I could keep Mu Chuanbai alive. But Su Yuntang could not. My two fathers. 1. Su Qingyuan knew from the start I wasn't his daughter. He treated me as leverage against my mother, exploiting me without remorse. The other, the emperor, knew I was his daughter yet used me to spy on the duke's mansion and manipulate Xia Huai through me. Now, at the hour of his death, he still deluded himself into thinking he could control me with my lineage. The crown prince, my child. The empress collapsed, unable to bear it any longer. In the corner, the imperial consort awoke, laughing uncontrollably. Karma is indeed swift. You wretch! When you killed my son, did you ever imagine this day would come? The empress shot her a sidelong glance. When His Majesty killed your son, did he ever imagine he would die by your hand? Ha! Perhaps it truly is. Karma. What? His Majesty. The child. The consort gasped as if choked, only managing muffled sounds. Then, a cold gleam flashed in her hand as she lunged at the empress. Wretch! You ruined everything! I leapt forward, shoving the consort aside. She staggered back, her head slamming hard against the stone wall. Ha ha ha! My son! My son! The imperial consort slumped to the ground, her eyes unfocused. Your Majesty, how could you be so heartless? With that, she violently wrenched another hairpin from her hair and plunged it into her own throat. A flurry of hurried footsteps echoed from outside. The empress's face paled. They've found the secret passage. I steadied her body, swiftly assessing the situation. Your Majesty, is there any way to alert the reinforcements outside? Given His Majesty's nature, he wouldn't have failed to leave a contingency plan to guard against me. The empress hesitated briefly before pulling a bone whistle from her bosom. I have a squad of personal guards, but using it will reveal our location. Calculating the timing, I declared decisively, better to fight than wait for death. The shrill whistle echoed through the passageway. The clang of clashing weapons echoed from outside, punctuated by agonized screams. After an unknown duration, the clamor ceased. I held a dagger, concealed in shadow, with the empress lying barely alive behind me. Rhythmic footsteps approached nearby, followed by Xia Huai's anxious cry, Ali! Your Majesty! Xia Huai! Moments later, Xia Huai burst into the chamber with a squad of imperial guards. His armor stained with blood, his body covered in wounds. He finally exhaled deeply upon seeing me. General Song has secured the palace gates. Most of the rebels have been executed. What of Duke Mu? I demanded urgently. Xia Huai's expression darkened. He escaped. But we captured Su Yuntang and her family. They've revealed quite a bit. Only then did I notice 2 imperial guards behind him, escorting a bound and gagged Su Yuntang. Her robes were drenched in blood. Child. The throne. Su Yunli. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Su Qingyuan, however, was a spineless coward, begging for mercy. Yunli, father was forced into this. I knew nothing. Save me. Humph. You're unworthy of being her father. The Empress Dowager rose with my support. Princess, it's time to step out and take charge. Xia Huai froze at this, turning to me with confusion. I produced the imperial edict. This time around, I'd never trust the emperor's empty promises again. This imperial edict was my interest. Xia Huai, stunned, immediately knelt on one knee. Your Highness. Princess, rise. I helped him up and turned to the Empress. Your Majesty, this empire requires our joint protection. 3 days later, in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, Xia Huai and General Song escorted the Duke of Mu to kneel in the center of the hall. The Empress Dowager sat upon the dragon throne, cradling the newborn prince, while I stood beside her. Mu Xian, do you know your crimes? The Empress Dowager asked coldly. The Duke of Mu raised his head and sneered, the victor writes history. What crime is there? I only regret that the dog emperor cut off my line. Yet I failed to exterminate the scourge of the Shao family. General Song kicked him to the ground, insolent. Standing beside the Empress Dowager, I signaled Xia Huai to present the evidence. Mu Xian, you forced the throne and betrayed your sovereign, a crime deserving death. I spare your life only because accounts remain to be settled. Minister Xia, read the charges. Xia Huai unfurled the yellow silk scroll, his voice booming. Mu Xian's first crime, in the 12th year of Jing Yuan. He embezzled military provisions and trafficked ironware. Second, he colluded with the southern frontier, leading to the general and his 100,000 troops perishing on the battlefield. Third, he framed Grand Tutor Xia for treason. One by one, as Xia Huai read the charges, gasps echoed through the court. The truth behind years of unjust accusations was finally laid bare. Mu Xian struggled and screamed, only to have his neck severed by a single stroke of the blade. The Empress Dowager addressed the ministers, effective immediately. The injustices against the general's mansion and the Grand Tutor's mansion shall be rectified. Furthermore, per the late emperor's final decree, General Song shall assume the role of commander-in-chief of the Imperial Guard, jointly assisting the young emperor alongside the eldest princess. After the court adjourned, I stood alone upon the city ramparts, gazing at the setting sun fading in the distance. A report reached me. Su Qingyuan strangled his wife. Su Yunshang then killed Su Qingyuan. She demands to see you in prison. Su Yunshang has grown considerably. After conceiving, she consumed all the medicine I gave her and murdered her husband. Now she has murdered her father. To see me? She is already a woman facing death. What purpose would there be in seeing me? Tell her I will not receive her. Xia Huai approached silently and offered a cup of hot tea. Taking the teacup, I murmured softly, I went to pay respects at the Grand General's residence. Why refuse to reclaim your identity? General Song has sought me out. Your parents' spirits in heaven surely wouldn't want to see you. Deny your heritage. What Xia Huai uncovered in the southern frontier wasn't just old cases, but also his true lineage. Xia Huai is the general's youngest son. The general spent his life in military service. General Song was his subordinate. The general's wife and children were all killed in the southern frontier by Mu Xian's scheme. Only the youngest son, convalescing in the capital, was saved by his grandfather. Alas, the Xia household could not protect itself. It was only when his mother emerged from the Imperial Music Bureau that she managed to find and bring him back. Xia Huai fell silent for a moment. Ali, are you trying to drive me away? I toyed with the tiger token, gazing at this man who had guarded me through both past and present lives. Suddenly, I smiled. Xia Huai, if I said I wished to leave this golden cage, would you accompany me? He knelt on one knee, taking my hand. Xia Huai belongs to Xia Li. Wherever the princess goes, this servant shall follow. The end.